The plan this morning was to talk with you for 15 to 20 minutes, basically, about a couple of things that other cohorts have asked us to front load in your experience. So we've gotten feedback that some of the things that we talk about over the course of your weeks here would be useful to sort of hit the ground running with. And so that's the intent of this conversation. And just so you know, we're also recording it. And I don't know, Hunter, is the recording already running or?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're already recording this, just FYI. This won't be shared publicly. As far as I understand, the intent is just for internal use. If we do plan to share it publicly for any reason, then we would obviously let you know about that, and make sure that you're okay. You know, if you want to ask a question or whatever that is used there. Okay. This is also something that we would likely share across offices for other teachers to kind of get a sense of some of these. Okay. That's kind of the reason that we're having this conversation. And in terms of what's a good outcome of this is really just your awareness. So a big part of what you're going to experience here at the boot camp is a kind of a shift in a few of your fundamental assumptions. Assumptions about learning, assumptions about programming, assumptions about what school is like, what a community feels like, and I can give you some specific examples, but there's this kind of shift that's about to happen for you, and so it's a good idea to just be aware, kind of go in eyes wide open, right? That you don't have to take notes or any tests on any of this stuff, and it's very likely that a lot of what we talk about here will be repeated over the course of your time. So I think just to kind of start with a couple of basics. Has anybody here served in the military? Okay, has anybody here worked on a PhD? Okay. Has anybody here been a chef in a kitchen?
My own kitchen, is that kind of?
No, professional kitchen or restaurant.
Okay.
Okay. Has anybody here dealt with kind of counseling or wilderness exploration, or sort of anybody here an athlete, a high performance athlete, college level or Olympic, anything like that? A musician? Anybody a professional musician? Okay. So I'm asking because there's something about the way that we experience most of our life that unless we sort of test ourselves or push ourselves against something, we miss the reality of how much we can shape what's happening around us. And I mean, we spend a lot of time in school being told, here's what you need to know now. I'm going to summarize a chapter or a concept for you. And now I want you to take notes and remember that and repeat it back to me as a sign of having learned, right? That's most of our experience. But some of us, for whatever reason, luck or our parents or our friends or what have you, are sort of pushed to stretch ourselves almost to the point of breaking by either studying intensely or performing intensely or practicing intensely. And there's something that you gain in that change. There's something that you gain in pressing yourself in a military context of boot camp, spending a couple of weeks pushing your body to its absolute limits where you can't feel your body anymore, and it's all a head game. There's something about studying a PhD or performing live, operating as an advanced athlete that pushes you to the point where you don't quite know that you're going to succeed. You're just doing it on faith. Like the only thing that's keeping you moving is just it's just desire and faith. I need to do this. I want to do this, and I believe that I will survive. So the reason that I fundamentally want to talk to you about this is because I want you to recognize that that's what's about to happen here. You're about to spend 60 to 80 hours a week, 5, 6, 7 days a week, pushing yourself harder than you've ever pushed yourself before, for most, if not all of them. And along the way, you're going to have to deal with a bunch of experiences, emotional experiences, and physical experiences that are going to test your limits. Some of you are going to realize how much you need sleep, food, water, breaks. Some of you are going to realize how much you beat yourself up all day long for not being at the head of the class. Who here got straight A's in high school? You're going to struggle the most because you believe that you do school well. and you know how to do school. So you are going to be shocked more than most to see the person who is quiet, humble, and unassuming in 3 weeks suddenly leading everybody in terms of how much code they're producing and the level of quality of their code. It's going to shock you. And you're going to be like, well, wait, I'm a good student. I know how to study. Why is this person doing better? So I want to prepare you for that. And I want to encourage you to push your own limits. You heard a lot of this stuff in the tweets this morning. Some of those tweets were gold. So the first suggestion then is just to fundamentally empty your glass. Okay, there is no such thing as programming secrets. You're not here to learn about some secret typing skills or whatever. You know, most of you watch popular movies, and you have some internal belief. Probably it's even just a bit of residual, but some of you are like fully swimming in it. This belief that programmers are just people that know what to type. They sit down at a computer with a bottle of vodka and guns and money everywhere, and they just type top to the screen to the bottom of the screen. They just type as fast as they can, and then things are done. You have some 3D virus breaking into the NSA, and everything's cool. But that's not how it happens. Actually, that the typing is actually more of an obstacle. If you think about sort of the Simpsons intro cartoon where the little baby, Maggie is steering next to her mom, and then honks. Most of us, if you remember back to what thought driving was you're just moving your hands around. But when you first sit to drive, you realize, oh, wait, there's a bunch of pedals here, and I have to coordinate those pedals, and there's some shifting happening, and I've got all these other knobs and buttons I have to deal with. The process of driving from the outside looks much simpler than actually it is. It's actually mostly a mental process that's happening. Similar with programming, it's not about the typing. It's about the thinking. The typing is almost incidental. The typing is almost like an obstacle that you have to get out of your way. Most of the time as a programmer, you're spending your time thinking and dealing with complex thoughts and modeling the real world, abstracting it or sort of reducing its complexity into something that you can actually manage as a human being with limited capacity for thinking. And so you'll realize that while you're here. And you'll look and you'll see someone typing really fast and think, oh, I want to type fast like that. And then a couple of weeks later, that person will be struggling potentially with the concept of something that you'll get right away. And you'll realize, oh, okay, it's not really about the typing, is it? I might save a little bit of time. But fundamentally, this is a thinking game. So there's no programming secrets, and you're not going to be here. You're not going to learn programming secrets here. You're going to learn how to think like a developer. Okay. There's no such thing as genius, in case you weren't sure. It's incredibly unlikely that any of you are out of a narrow band of intelligence, of human intelligence. You're all about right here. And if you were a genius, then you may have already composed, your Moonlight Sonata or whatever at the age of 5, or gotten your medical degree as a neurosurgeon at the age of 11, or something like that. But you're not, and there is no such thing as a genius. You're all in about the same narrow band of humanity, of what human beings can do. And I suggest that to you to minimize or quiet the voice that you're going to hear in a couple of weeks or in a week when one of your peers gets something and you think, damn it, this always happens for me. I never get it. I'm not, I can't do this. I'm not keeping up. Everybody's ahead of me. Whatever that voice is, it's nonsense. That voice is a fool, and it makes no sense. And it's trying to protect you from maybe the pain of failure. Okay, maybe it has some utility, but it's not real. You're all capable. You all belong here. Okay, so I just want to remind you of that. And if it helps to kind of lift this up and say you're all here, then so be it. If that helps you feel better. But don't fetishize or idolize any particular person for knowing something or not knowing. It isn't about that. It's about the effort and the process of it. Stay focused on it. And really, I mean, if you think about it, you're kind of here to learn how to learn, to become an Olympic learner, to push yourself. Has anybody here done hot yoga? Do you know about, for those people who've done hot yoga, do you know how like in the first couple of days or weeks of hot yoga, you go numb in weird places and you can pass out? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so what hot yoga does is sort of, you're doing yoga in maybe 120 degrees sauna, basically. And it forces your body to optimize itself. You suddenly start drinking more water, eating better, right? Like everything sort of adjusts to the pressure situation. And I'm inviting you to do that in this situation, to find your own pressure. If you happen to know a bunch of stuff already, if you have a CS degree or you've done some development in the past, don't kick back and sit on your laurels and say, I've got this. Find something to compete with, someone to compete with. Find a teacher and compete with them. Find some way to create pressure for yourself so that this experience is overwhelming for you. Become and stay overwhelmed for the next couple of months if you can. That's your best bet. Yeah? Okay, is this useful so far?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 more minutes. And I'll just give you a quick rundown of things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about a kitchen mentality, a mindset of play, a growth and fixed mindset, deliberate practice, and really like sort of how to win here. There's no such thing as cheating. So for kitchen mentality, many of you, again, are going to assume that you've paid money and time for us to give you something. You're a customer. So where is my meal, you might say, on a daily basis? Tell me what I should be doing. And I want to suggest to you that you can actually shift this, that you've paid time and money to be in the kitchen with us, which is why I'm suggesting that you can start this week finding out what hackathons are around and promote them. Make that something that you serve to the rest of the community as a co-op. So be that chef that creates. Don't wait for someone to serve you something. Yeah? And in fact, that gives you the right to demand attention, doesn't it? If suddenly now you're responsible for the production of something, your own learning, then you are well within your rights to go and say, hey, I need more attention right now, right? As opposed to waiting and saying, well, there's a system here, I'm just going to wait for someone to tell me if I'm doing okay. That's not what a chef would do, right? Because you're responsible for shipping, for delivering. Okay. So settle into that mindset of being a chef and being in the kitchen. And there's a slight difference between a chef and a cook, of course, where a cook is in the kitchen but is waiting for directions on what to produce, where the chef is owning the responsibility for the meal. So I'm suggesting that you own the responsibility. You want to play a little bit, maybe a little. By a little bit, I mean all the time. If you can be, imagine yourself like a 3-year-old. Picture in your mind's eye a bunch of 4, 5, and 6-year-olds running around a field with a 3-year-old following them, right? How does that look? They all start together, they start running, the 3-year-old falls behind, right? Because they just don't run as fast. Everybody turns around and they run back the other way. What does the 3-year-old do? They don't sit down and beat themselves up and say, man, these shoes suck, you know? I'm not really a good runner. I'm not good at running. I shouldn't be out here running with these people. That's not what they think. What do they think? Oh, sweet, we're going this way? Let's go that way. And they just turn around and start running. Because there's this innocence about play that frees you of the guilt of judgment. And I'm strongly suggesting that you spend every day thinking about that. Even for a couple of minutes in the morning. Remind yourself, you have permission to play and permission to suck, critically. If you've heard of Ira Glass's the Taste Gap, it's a very nice piece about this, where we all start with a very good taste. We know what we like. You all use websites and applications all the time. And you believe you know what it's like. But then as you go to produce something, boy, is it going to suck. It's going to be really far off what you wanted to produce. And in that moment, most people just give up. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at design. I'm not good at programming. I'm not good at algorithms or whatever it is. Patently not true. You just haven't given it enough time. So if you give yourself permission to suck, that leaves that room for you to keep failing over and over and over towards getting better. And measured in days or weeks or months, you will get better with more time. So give yourself permission to suck and just keep playing with it. You've heard of growth and fixed mindset? Yeah. And so another way to think about growth and fixed mindset is what your relationship is to confusion. So if you react to confusion with fear, if you think about it, we've been trained for that most of our lives in school, where your primary goal in K-12 is to trick the teacher into thinking you know what you're doing, right? Yeah. or your friends, right? Trick them into thinking everything's under control. I've got my homework done. I understand this concept. I don't ask stupid questions. I'm not the dunce in the back of the room. It's part of our language, right? So here, that actually works against you. That sense of, I'm confused, let me hide it until I figure this out, is exactly the opposite behavior of what you want. And I see a couple of the folks who are repeating nodding. Maybe I can suggest to you that the folks who are repeating phase one can actually see the future. So as a cohort, they are your greatest asset. So be careful now, because some of you have been trained to judge repeaters as being not so good. Shame, I say, not on you, but the people who taught you that. Because what these repeaters are doing is choosing to repeat something that maybe they struggled with, maybe they didn't pick up as fast as they wanted to, or as fast as we wanted them to. But today, they see the future. They know exactly what challenges you're going to go through, what's going to be easy, what's going to be hard. You should lean on them. Ask them. Who's repeating phase one? Great. You guys are so lucky. You really are, to have a number of people who can basically see the future right now and help coach you through this experience. Deliberate practice is pretty straightforward, right? Where you're basically spending your time working on the things that you're not so good at. And I would recommend that, because there's this cumulative effect that happens where you decide in the first couple of days that hashes are complicated and you avoid them. And that there's something called the Matthew principle in the Bible, and St. Matthew, some verse, if anybody knows it off heart, by heart, it's some verse that says, those who have will get more and those who don't won't. And the idea is, when you learn something here, it's going to build in a week or 2 weeks. And so you really, without stressing about knowing every single thing along the way, you want to expose yourself openly and playfully and curiously to every single thing that you see. Don't get neurotic about anything. Don't build any stories about how something is hard and something isn't. Because it may not be hard, it's just a little bit new for you. The deliberate practice, this idea is really very simple. It's just a matter of focusing on the things that you're not doing, being disciplined about. And then just as a reminder, really, there's no such thing as cheating in this space, except for one moment, which is on assessments. So every 3 weeks, we'll give you something that looks and feels like a test, but we use all sorts of words to obscure that. The bottom line is, it's a way of measuring where you are. And the best way to succeed at that experience is to ask the people who are repeating here, how do I prepare for the assessment? Almost invariably, they'll tell you, don't think about it. Just focus on the work. Every day, get curious, get excited, rip it apart, and then the assessment, instead of being this big final exam building that you crash into, will just be a little speed bump. You'll hardly even notice it as you're driving by. Do you guys have any questions? Just a lot of talking, a lot of hot air. So any questions, any concerns, any comments?
Oh, that's something in there.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah. So when you talk about like deliberate practice, I think a lot of us, I don't know if you were thinking technically in your mind when he was saying deliberately practicing something, but it also includes the emotional like response or connection to learning. So like if you're realizing that giving feedback to your pair at the end of the day is really difficult for you, like recognizing that and using that as a moment to get better at that too. So don't just think about the technical, because if you look at the lens of your experience here, it's technical plus cultural, emotional, all of those things come together. So when you think about all of those things all the time, you're going to have a much richer experience.
You should think about the people as well.
Yeah. The people. Like, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody want to call bullshit? I'm happy to debate it open without any. I'm not going to force my opinion on you. Anybody who's repeating who just disagrees with anything I've said or wants to add anything?
I want to say something.
Yep.
I'm just so happy we're doing this now in the first weeks. It's like the one thing I wanted from the whole phase one. So this is awesome. I mean, it gets you in the mindset. You want to be here. You want to learn. You want to grow. So,
we had this talk until week 3 the first time around. So having this now is just literally everything you need to succeed. Just don't be afraid to ask questions. Expose your weak points. Just
I'll just double down on pretty much everything he said. I had a little bit of experience with coding, like I had an intro course in community. And I came in here like, I know this phase 0, I knew it already, it's not a course. So I came here phase 1, just chilling. And then we're being for a reason. So, it's a lot of stuff. And do not get complacent, because the second you get complacent, you lose. It's simple as that.
Yeah, it can blindside you, right? It's really amazing how just the way, there's a lot of people who say, for example, just do it, or give it your best shot, or like those are all sort of zooming out from 100 yards away. Yeah, the person just did it. But what are they thinking while they're doing it? If you're thinking that you don't belong, or that you're not capable, or that you're not smart as your neighbor, that stuff eats away at your ability to perform, in a very real way. Really, the best advice I can give you is just play like a 3-year-old, play without any shame or fear or anything like that. And if anybody makes you feel bad about that, I don't know, tell Jacqueline or tell somebody to help reinforce this idea, because it is very difficult to let go of these assumptions about how learning should work.
And that gives me an idea too, is when we talk about like recognizing when that happens, that voice in your head that's like, you didn't do this, why don't I get this? Why is my pair catching on earlier? Like, I don't get it, I'm frustrated. Like, when you hear that voice in your head for the first time today, tomorrow, or maybe Wednesday, like, tell your pair, like, or tell your accountability groups, or tell someone around you, because it makes it real and it removes the stigma, and it will help you figure out a strategy to get through that and use that to fuel moving forward, as opposed to create a trap for you to get stuck in that voice or that feeling of like, I can't do this. Because as soon as you recognize it, then you can do something about it.
Cool. I mean, I think we've made the point. Everybody's good? Any other questions or comments last minute? Okay, cool. If this is recorded, then you'll be able to reference it later if there's anything interesting. I'm also happy to answer any questions about it. I think right now we want to do a little game. Okay, so why don't we stand up, push all the chairs out of the way, and
Clear the floor of any cups or any